But Carmella really did a great job getting under Nikki's skin. And what Bryan said was that it was basically like taking all the heat that Nikki Bella had from last year and putting it in this one promo, which was perfect. I mean, Carmella called her a total need freak. She said that the only reason that she got her foot into WWE was because of her beauty. The only reason she got her foot into wrestling was because of her sister. The only reason that she became a celebrity was because of her man. All honesty, this was a damn good promo by Carmella. She lost a little bit of her accent. She sounded a lot better. All honesty, it was really cool to see this promo. We see Miz and the Spirit Squad defeat Dolph Ziggler, Rhino, and Slater. God help us all. The Spirit Squad's still around. If they just keep Kenny, then that's okay. Mikey needs to go. Natalya and Daniel Bryan have a segment. Natalya's basically talking about joining the women's SmackDown matchup, and then she talks about her cat. Is this a new gimmick change or something? I don't understand. Baron Corbin beats Jack Swagger in a No Mercy rematch. Nothing really to talk about there. Dean Ambrose, Natalya, and Bryan are backstage. Natalya's still talking about her cat. And then Dean just says, excuse me, I need to talk to Bryan for a little bit. And she leaves, and basically it's like, cats, man, I don't know. He talks about being the referee and calling it right down the middle. And Bryan says, you can do whatever you want out there. You just can't be the referee. And Dean just basically responds with, I'll do that then. And Bryan just says, you're going to do what? And that was where I was like, I know where this is going. He's going to be a jack of all trades. He's going to do everything. And he did. The main event being AJ Styles versus James Ellsworth for the WWE World Championship. A very one-sided matchup with AJ, but James Ellsworth did get one move in. He got a very good no-chin music, I think it was called. It was a very interesting deal, but in the end we see, despite all of Dean's distractions, James Ellsworth does not get the title, thankfully, but he does get a disqualification victory over AJ Styles, who just loses it because Dean Ambrose kept getting it under his skin. And it's announced next week that Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles will compete in a non-title matchup, and if Ambrose wins, he will be the number one contender for the WWE World title. Excuse me. So, that was SmackDown. Not too much in the way of impressiveness, but it was still a pretty decent show, to say the least. But Raw definitely prevailed. Some of the stories were making a lot more sense. Goldberg coming back was hands down my favorite thing to see. His promo was amazing. This was a pretty good week for Raw and SmackDown. So, I'm going to take a short 1-minute break and then come back, talk about NXT as well as Lucha Underground. But before I do, guys, there is a deal going on at ajsbelts.com. If you go and you actually send an email to ajsbelts@yahoo.com and you mention the Squared Circle podcast, you can get an exclusive deal, you guys. You can get early opportunities in which you can get the new championship belts that are coming in. They've got the new belts. They've got the Universal title. They've got the Cruiserweight title. They got the Women's SmackDown title. They have the Tag Team titles. You cannot get this deal anywhere else than right here on the Squared Circle podcast. It's just, it's awesome, guys, because you got to go over to ajsbelts@yahoo.com. There's a special pre-order pricing on the Universal and the Cruiserweight Championship, you guys. Check it out. By all means, mention us, and you're going to get a special deal, you guys. It's only for the Universal and for the Cruiserweight title, but you are not going to get a deal anywhere else than here on the Squared Circle podcast. Check you guys out in just a minute. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Squared Circle Podcast weekly recap where I talk about Raw, SmackDown, Lucha Underground, as well as NXT. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Spreaker.com, iTunes, Player.fm, PodDirectory.com, Stitcher.com, TuneIn Radio, IW Nerd, Satchel Podcast Player, as well as the one and only Mr. NTG on YouTube. And we're talking about NXT. Oh boy. NXT was a damn good show tonight. Gonna send you a couple of the original, not the original brackets, but the updated brackets because, we'll say that for like another time. But we kicked off the show with a Nakamura and Samoa Joe recap promoting the fact that they're going to fight against each other at NXT TakeOver Toronto. It is official. And I am hoping that they indeed make it a no DQ or something like that. We see a first round matchup for the Dusty Rhodes Classic, in which we see Rich Swann and No Way Jose defeating Tony Nese and Drew Gulak to advance. A pretty standard Southern matchup. I think that the teaming of Rich Swann and No Way Jose is just as good as the teaming of Drew Gulak and Tony Nese. I think that Swann and Jose are definitely going to be a very entertaining team, and they definitely really are going to get over in NXT. I can just tell you that right now. There's a deal with Ty Dillinger where he talks about wanting to get revenge on Bobby Roode, and he wants to do it at NXT TakeOver Toronto. He is given that opportunity. It is made official as of tonight. It will be Bobby Roode versus Ty Dillinger one-on-one at NXT TakeOver Toronto. It is the Perfect 10 versus Glorious himself. It is going to be amazing. We see an Austin Aries promo in which he's basically asked, who's going to be your partner, And Austin Aries is like, don't worry about it. I got somebody big time ready for this tag team match. And you're going to love who they picked. Bobby Roode pins Sean Maluda. And then after the matchup, Ty Dillinger and Bobby Roode get into it, and they beat each other down. But Ty Dillinger gets kind of like the last laugh in this because he beats down on Bobby Roode and sends him out of the ring. And Bobby Roode, I remember him just saying, "Don't touch me! Don't touch me!" I'm just thinking to myself, gosh, he just ripped off Chris Jericho, didn't you? Liv Morgan had a little bit of a promo, but then got beaten down by Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. And then they put the entire women's division on NXT on notice, stating that they are going to take over. And they even sent a message out to NXT Women's Champion Asuka, who I want to talk about in just a minute because I know her opponent for NXT TakeOver Toronto, and it's going to be awesome. I'm going to talk about that. No, I'm going to talk about that right now. It's Mickie James. When the news broke out that it was going to be Mickie James against Asuka for the NXT Women's Championship, all I could say was, oh my God, yes, thank you. I am thrilled to be seeing this. Mickie James has the opportunity to make history here because she's already been a WWE Women's Champion. She's been the Divas Champion. She's been the Knockouts Champion. I believe she was even the Knockouts Tag Team Champion at one point. I could be wrong. But she could go on to win the NXT Women's Championship from Asuka. I am expecting that this matchup, all due respect to Bayley, Emma, Dana Brooke, all the women that have come before and have fallen to Asuka, I think that this matchup is going to not only be far more even, but is going to be a hellacious matchup. It is going to just tear the house down, and it is going to really showcase women's wrestling at its finest between these two. I think that if they needed something to combat Sasha and Charlotte, this was the matchup that they definitely needed to put on. It might be just a one-time only deal with Mickie James. In all honesty, you guys, I'm okay with that because this is going to be a damn good match. Bottom line, we see Otis Donomiz and Tucker Knight fall to the team of Austin Aries and the debuting Roderick Strong. Baby, do you believe in miracles? Sorry. So Roderick Strong is announced as Austin Aries' tag team partner, and this is awesome because these two guys have actually been tag team champions before at Ring of Honor. Now seeing them team up, I see the tournament finals going in a lot of different ways, but I definitely see them going in the direction of the finals being DIY against Revival. I could see DIY taking on Sanity, and I could see DIY taking on Roderick Strong and Austin Aries. But I think right now, spoilers, you guys, so you might want to fast forward to the next minute. There is a point where DIY takes on the Revival, but the Revival is out due to injury, so it is either going to be Sanity or Roderick Strong and Austin Aries in the finals. I can guarantee that right now. I would much rather prefer seeing Roderick Strong and Austin Aries versus DIY. I think that matchup would be amazing. If they did not, I wish they would have planned it to be Revival versus DIY, because there was no matchup that you could honestly see ending the tournament better than that. It just makes more sense to do that. But I guess they didn't think that far ahead. I don't know. It's weird. Andrade Cien Almas, he actually had a backstage promo in which he talked about the whole change of heart deal, stuff like that. Even had a translator basically talking about how ever since he took his mask off, he felt like there was no respect being there. I honestly thought this was basically a shoot promo, because it did feel like nobody took him seriously after the mask was taken off, because he is a very talented individual. But now he's just saying that, he's in it only for himself, and that's the way it's going to be. So obviously you can tell that they're going to do Cedric Alexander versus Andrade Cien Almas. Maybe they'll do it at NXT TakeOver Toronto. We'll see. DIY will be in action next week in the first round of the tournament. I just have to remember who they're fighting. And for those of you that have already heard what I had to say, you already know what's going on, so don't even bother. But I also know that TJ Perkins, who's replacing Hideo Itami, will be teaming up with Kota Ibushi to take on Lince Dorado and Mustafa Ali. Honestly, you guys, they could make a feud in this matchup here, because you could have Kota Ibushi and TJ Perkins go so far, but then they lose, and you could also really build up the matchup between the two of them, because the two of them were in the semifinals, and they had a tremendous matchup. I would think that they would put that on a Survivor Series matchup, in all honesty. I don't understand why they didn't, but it is what it is, I guess. So, let's see here. I'm trying to remember who the... Oh, you're kidding me, right? They're not even going to have, a... Okay, here we go. So, DIY will be taking on Ho Ho Lun and Tian Bing. I apologize if I offend anybody for not knowing his name properly. The night ended for NXT with Nakamura addressing Samoa Joe, talking about facing him at